Off the coast of modern-day North Carolina, there's an island wrapped in fog and silence. It's called Roanoke. Centuries ago, it was meant to be the first permanent English settlement in the New World. A place of hope, promise, and rebirth. But by the time ships returned, every man, woman, and child had vanished. No smoke, no bodies, only a single word carved into wood. A word that has haunted history ever since the Croatoan. It was the year 1587. England dreamed of empire. 3 small ships carried 117 colonists across the Atlantic. They called it a mission of faith. But beneath their hymns and speeches was fear. Fear of an untamed world, and of what might already be living in it. Governor John White led them ashore. He wasn't a soldier, he was a painter, an artist trying to capture paradise with a brush. When his boots first touched Roanoke sand, he described the island as green, fertile, and full of strange noises. But his journal stopped short of describing. The faces he thought he saw between the trees. Among the colonists was his daughter, Eleanor Dare, young, brave, heavy with child. That August, she gave birth to the first English baby born in America, Virginia Dare. Her cries carried through the forest like a small spark in endless darkness. For a brief moment, the colony believed it had a future, but the wind that night carried something else. Distant drumming, echoing from the woods, where no one claimed to be. As the months passed, their food rotted. Relations with the nearby tribes grew tense, and something was always watching from the tree line. Tracks appeared in the dirt, too large for animals, too straight for humans. When hunters followed them, they never came back. John White made the hardest decision of his life: to sail back to England for supplies. He promised his daughter he'd return before winter. But the sea had other plans. War with Spain broke out, and every English ship was seized for battle. 3 years would pass before he could return. When he did, the island was empty. The houses dismantled carefully, not destroyed. No fire, no blood, only silence. Thick as smoke. The sand where children once played was marked by small handprints, turned to stone by rain. And on a single post of the palisade, one word had been carved deep into the grain: Croatoan. Historians will tell you it was the name of a nearby island, home to friendly natives, a clue left behind. But others claim Croatoan was never a place. It was a name older than the colonies, older than the tribes, a word whispered by coastal shamans to describe something that lived between this world and the next, a devourer of the lost. John White searched the island desperately, calling out for his daughter, for his granddaughter. The only reply was wind moving through hollow homes. When his men begged him to leave, he refused, until a storm came without warning. Lightning struck the shoreline, splitting the mast of his ship. They barely escaped alive. He never saw Roanoke again. Centuries later, the legends began to grow. Sailors passing the coast said they saw ghost lights floating above the surf, drifting inland and vanishing among the trees. Hunters swore they heard voices calling from the fog, voices speaking perfect English, in a place no Englishman had been for 100 years. Others told of bones unearthed in shallow graves, their skeletons marked with carvings resembling the word Croatoan. Then, in 1937, a Georgia farmer plowing his field struck stone. He wiped away the dirt to find writing. words etched by hand. It began, Ananias Dare and Virginia went hence unto heaven, 1591. It was signed to Eleanor Dare. Dozens more Dare stones surfaced soon after, each telling a darker story. Disease, betrayal, cannibalism. Some scholars dismissed them as hoaxes. Others claim the carvings contained dialect too accurate for fakes. If those stones were true, they suggested the colonists fled inland, but what they found there was worse than starvation. One inscription read, "The savages were not the devils. The devils were us." Archaeologists have since uncovered strange evidence on Roanoke. Traces of European pottery buried beneath native soil. Pollen showing sudden die-offs of crops long before droughts. And soil rich with arsenic. A poison used in the 1500s to preserve bodies. Yet, there were no bodies to preserve. Local tribes spoke of white spirits who wandered the woods at night, hair pale, eyes empty, muttering prayers that melted into the wind. The Croatoan tribe, now known as Hatteras, told early settlers that the lost English had become the woods themselves. When they died, the forest buried them, standing up. In 1607, 20 years after Roanoke vanished, the Jamestown colonists met natives with gray eyes, who claimed their ancestors came from across the sea. When asked their origin, they pointed south, toward Roanoke. But when guides led them there, they refused to step foot on the island after dusk. There's a painting drawn by John White himself before he vanished. For centuries, it seemed like an ordinary map. But in 2012, scientists scanned it under ultraviolet light and discovered a hidden symbol drawn in invisible ink near Roanoke's western shore. A four-pointed star. It marked what looked like a fortress, or a grave. Excavations there revealed burned earth, twisted nails, and a single human jawbone buried upside down. Some believe the colonists joined the Croatoans. Others think they were wiped out by disease or war. But none of those theories explain the carvings found miles inland. Spirals and sigils that match European occult symbols from the Elizabethan era. Nor the reports from fishermen who, even today, claim that on misty mornings, they see figures walking along the waterline, barefoot, pale, and watching. The word Croatoan has reappeared throughout history like a bad omen. It was found scrawled on the last page of Edgar Allan Poe's journal before his death, carved into a post in Amelia Earhart's barracks before she disappeared, etched on the bedpost of a man who vanished during the 1901 smallpox quarantine. Every time it surfaces, something or someone goes missing. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's curse, but the people of Roanoke are still gone, swallowed by the earth, the sea, or something older that demanded silence in exchange for survival. Some legends say Virginia Dare grew up among the spirits, her skin turning white as salt, her eyes black as the ocean at night. They call her the White Doe, a ghost who appears whenever someone dares to speak the word aloud. Every few years, explorers still visit the island. They bring drones, scanners, and soil testers, but they always leave before sunset. Locals say the air feels wrong after dark. The trees seem closer. The sand shifts when no one's walking. And if you listen carefully, between the calls of the seabirds, you can hear faint singing, a lullaby in a language that sounds almost like English, but isn't. Historians call it America's first mystery, but maybe it was America's first warning. That some lands aren't meant to be claimed. That some names, like Croatoan, were never meant to be spoken, only feared. John White's journals end abruptly. His last entry reads, "All are gone. God save them." But in the margins, faintly, there's another line. They are not gone. They are changed. No one knows who wrote it. When night falls on Roanoke, fog rises from the marshes, thick and gray. It curls through the ruins of the old fort, it drifts over the beach, and swallows the trees whole. The locals say if you light a lantern and whisper the name Virginia Dare, you'll hear a child laughing. Close, but never close enough to see. Archaeologists dig, tourists take photos. The world has moved on, but the island remembers. The soil still refuses to yield new crops, and every few decades, a fisherman disappears near the same shore, where White's ship once anchored. Their boats are always found drifting, empty. Perhaps the colony wasn't lost. Perhaps it was taken, not by war or famine, but by the very land they sought to own. A land that demanded silence, obedience, and blood. And when it was satisfied, it buried the truth under sand and time. 4 centuries later, the word Croatoan still stands, carved in legend, etched in fear. And when the fog rolls in from the Atlantic, thick, cold, and endless, the island still whispers for the ones who came before, the ones who vanished without a trace, the ones who may never have left. History calls it the lost colony of Roanoke, but maybe the colony isn't lost at all. Maybe it's still waiting, beneath the soil, behind the trees, beneath the waves, for someone foolish enough to follow their footsteps. The colony that disappeared overnight, left behind no graves, no truth, only a word carved into wood, and a question carved into history. What really happened on Roanoke Island?